Hey everyone! So today we're going to do a little city exploration again. I was asked to have a look at Graz, which is the second largest city in Austria, and I'm happy to do that. You can already see here on the front covers that Graz has some very different sides to it. We have sort of the historic places, a lot of Baroque buildings, very beautiful. And then we also have this more modern part with the friendly alien, as this building is called. I think both of these structures are equally representative of the city. And if you show them to anyone in Austria, they will immediately know which city you're talking about. The Uhrturm here dates back to the old fortress on top of the hill in the city. When I first visited, it had a shadow. It was in 2003 when Graz was the cultural capital of Europe. And they just rebuilt the structure, just completely black, and put it next to the actual tower. So you had the Uhrturm, the clock tower, and the shadow of the Uhrturm right next to it. It looked pretty cool. And this here, the friendly alien, was also created for that year. It's a museum for contemporary art. These little bits here are to let daylight in, and the facade can be used to show different kinds of patterns of light. And I just really like how it sits in the city, where you have these old red tiled roofs, these beautiful little Baroque structures, lots of small streets around. Very, very cute. Alright, so here we see some of the places you can visit, and here we have a map. And there's also some of the galleries right here. But I think we're going to start with the map. So once again we have a city built along a river, the Mur. And the interesting thing about Graz is it's also built almost in a little valley, so it's a little protected by the mountains here around. From west to north to east, and only to the south it's open. It lies south of the Alps, so a large city away from the Danube, and it has a reputation of feeling almost Mediterranean for an Austrian city. So in terms of the weather, you definitely feel that southern influence here, because it sits on the southern side of the mountains. The name Graz comes from a Slovene word, Gradec, which means little fortress And that's the same word or the same root that you find in the ending Grad at the end of cities like in Belgrade. So that was an interesting little detail I didn't know about. If you come to visit the city, you might arrive here at the train station. And then you might take Annenstraße past the Esperantoplatz, past Südtiroler Platz. You cross the Erzherzog Johann Brücke to Murgasse. And then you're in the inner city here. Hauptplatz, meaning this is the main square. And we have the Rathaus right here. Town Hall. There's also a Congress Center and the Landhaus. That's all along Herrengasse. Might follow it down to Jakominiplatz. If we walk up Sporgasse past Karmeliterplatz and Paulustorgasse, we get to the Paulustor, one of the last gates of the former fortification that you still find here. And we're walking along the Schlossberg. So that's one of these little hills right in the city. Or you can also take a little railway up there if you don't want to take the walk. I don't remember if it's very steep, but it is a fair bit. And then you get to the clock tower that we've just seen. And it's really nice to just stay up there. Maybe bring a little picnic and enjoy the view of the city. But we actually wanted to keep walking. Maria Theresia Allee. And then here you have the Stadtpark. So a large park. And you get to Glacisstraße, which is quite busy. Geidorfplatz. We cross that. We follow the Heinrichstraße, or maybe one of the small ones. Artemsgasse or Harachgasse. And we get to the Karl Franzens Universität. So that's quite an old university, dating back to the 16th century. We can see here, I think this is social sciences probably, but it doesn't mention any of the other parts. Interestingly, right next to it there's also the Kriminalmuseum, the Museum of Crime. So I don't know why it's right there. That's quite interesting. And I don't really know how well known Graz is outside of Austria or of German-speaking countries, but there were quite a lot of important figures who studied in Graz. For example, Johannes Kepler was here, Ludwig Boltzmann, Nikola Tesla, Erwin Schrödinger, and also Otto Loewi, who used to be on the 100 shilling bill when we had shilling before the euro. From the university, of course, you can also find a lot of pubs nearby, usually right here in this corner. You have a lot of students in Graz. I think there are about 60,000. Considering the population is, I think, about 300,000 at the moment. That's quite a large percentage. And then even further out, we have the Landeskrankenhaus. This is the hospital. And I'm not 100% sure if this is the same structure or whether this was rebuilt somewhere else. But Graz had a hospital that was entirely in Art Nouveau style. It's absolutely gorgeous, of course. I read that it was quite far out from the city, which didn't make it too popular because it was difficult to get to. So I'm guessing it might have been the same that's still there, just obviously with a lot of additions. And from there, if you want to get even further out, you can see plenty of green in the area. This place is even called Maria Grün. So if you need to get away a bit from the busy center, you have plenty of options. You might also want to follow the Maria Troster Straße to Maria Trost, which is a pilgrimage site. You have the church right here. There's a youth center. This place is called the Himmelreich, so heaven, basically. And the basilica is a very beautiful Baroque structure. Other places here are St. Leonhard, Waldendorf, St. Peter, Jacomini. And on the other side of the Mur we have Graz and Lend. And here we have Eggenberg, which is not part of Graz per se anymore, but of course it's just nearby. And there has a very beautiful castle, again, Baroque, right here with an old gallery in it, if you'd like to see some art. In terms of public transport, we have the main train station, and pretty much all of the lines pass through the train station, then take you to the main square, Jacomini Square, and then move off into different parts. 3 and 5 to Andritz, 1 all the way out to the Basilica Maria Trost, so you don't even need a car. 7 to the hospital, 3 and 13 to Kremgasse, 6 and 26 to St. Peter, 4 and 13 south to Liebenau and Moor Park, 5 to Puntigam and the airport. I have never flown from the airport in Graz, and I'm not sure how many connections you have there, frankly. Puntigam's quite famous though for its beer, and so is Eggenberg, by the way. Right, here we have 7, Wetzelsdorf, 1 is Eggenberg, and then at the hospital, and then at the center again, we're with the main train station. Right, and here's 4 and 6, I missed that. we're taking a closer look at the center. There you go, it's a bit easier to see. So again, I haven't been to Graz in a few years, but I used to visit quite often. And I remember Annenstrasse being a bit of a walk. Once you get to the smaller streets here, it's just a really, really lovely place. And you can see there's quite a lot of monasteries. Another one here. Plenty of churches throughout the city, like here. The cathedral, right here. Stiegenkirche. Schlossbergplatz. So there's a strong religious history. But I think that's true for most cities in Austria, as the Habsburgs were, part of the Counter-Reformation and very close with the Catholic Church. The friendly alien that we saw earlier is actually called Kunsthaus. So that really cool structure right there. It looks like it might fly off at any moment. So right next to the Mur. And another cool little detail is here. The Mur Island. So this isn't really an island. This is a structure, so 2 little bridges, and then a floating cafe at the center. This was also created for the time it was the cultural capital in 2003. And I've heard, I don't know if this is true, that this was originally designed to be in New York on the Hudson River, and for some reason it wasn't possible to build there. I don't know if that is actually the case. But the artist is from New York, it's Vito Acconci. And he created it for the little river through the center of Graz. I think it's a really, really cool structure. I really like it. And when we have another look at the Schlossberg, we can see another small detail here. It says Stollen. So there are some tunnels under the mountain. Some of them you can visit, some of them are closed. I think there's a museum in there as well. This little bit here, number 9, that's pretty cute as well. It's the Glockenspielplatz. And the Glockenspiel is this here. So, at a specific hour, the little doors open and these 2 figures come out and turn around to the sound of the bells. They are dressed in traditional outfits, which I'm sure you've seen before. A dirndl and lederhosen. So probably more often associated with Bavaria, but Bavaria and Austria are quite similar in a lot of ways. So there's that little detail. Here's a small picture of the Mur Island. As you can see, it's a very modern structure, and I think it goes really well with the friendly alien, so it's really cute side by side. You also have a really huge armory with 30,000 pieces, and this beautiful building, which is the Herzoghof. The colors of Styria, where Graz is, are green. So you'll find that here in many of the signs. And you have these really cute courtyards. Sometimes you'll find cafes or restaurants there. It's really lovely to sit. This is a small picture of the cathedral. Again, very Catholic, as you can see. And here's the main area. These beautiful houses in different colors. And I generally get the impression that Graz is quite proud of its friendly alien, as well as the island. And I think rightly so. I'm not always a fan of modern architecture. I feel like especially here in Vienna, we've recently got a lot of towers that kind of all look very much the same. But this one here is super unique, and you can see how the facade is used to create different light patterns. I really, really like it. So I think this is a really successful project. They're also quite proud of their mountain. And rightly so. There you go. Plenty of images of the clock tower. And you can just stop in one of the gardens around it. And here's a little cafe. I think I've actually been there. It must have been a really long time ago. But it's just a really lovely city. Here you have Schlossberg that I've mentioned before, just outside the city limits. You can see that the region has a lot of hills. And one of the really cool things about Graz is that it lies quite far in the south. So if you want to travel, for example, to Slovenia from here, it's not far at all. Maribor is just 60 kilometers from Graz. You can hop on the train and you're there something like an hour. And you know, you can hear the language that inspired the name. There we have a lot of the information on ticket prices and opening hours. This is a little older, so some of the exhibitions that I mentioned here are out of date, like this one. It was until November last year. old masters, a coin cabinet, an archaeology museum and history museum about the history of Styria, a sculpture park and botanical garden, and a museum for kids. It's actually the most visited museum of Graz, with about 85,000 visitors per year. So quite popular for families. There's a lock and key museum. This sounds really interesting. One for toys and puppets. A tramway museum. That's the Museum of Criminology. And another overview here. It's a really, really nice city. So if you ever plan a little holiday in Austria, I think it's definitely worth visiting. And for today, I hope this was perfectly boring enough to lull you to sleep. I hope you have sweet dreams, and I'll see you again.